We're now ready to conclude our exploration of media, places, and participant observation with a view toward identifying a few basic questions that you can carry into your reading and into the tutorial exercises. Really, what we've done today are a few things. Firstly, we've identified in a very solid way how media can affect reality by providing us with a set of stories and expectations that encourage us to go to particular places and expect to have particular experiences when we get there. So, what we've talked about is the way that media production, in both the examples of sporting occasions, but also with examples of dramas, which are fictional pieces of content that are nevertheless filmed in real places. How these have real economic effects because they create flows of people who go to particular places expecting to have particular kinds of experiences. And that creates many, many beneficial real social and economic outcomes. That creates industries, that creates economic opportunities for the people who live in those locations. But it also kind of recruits those people as cultural intermediaries, if you like, as people who are somehow involved in the management and the mediation between media narratives and expectations and the experiences of real places, and turning those expectations into sustainable sources of social activity. So what we can see is that media tourism, the process by which people are encouraged to come to particular places through different forms of media production. We've talked about two: media drama and media sport. And this is important because it's something that connects media industries, in particular media storytelling, with leisure economies. And the example we talked about here was the way that a particular kind of storytelling operation, the marketing of Ronda Rousey's fight with Holly Holmes in Melbourne, as a landmark in gendered sport and as, if you like, a dramatization of gender politics. How this was something which relayed those kind of cultural themes into very real economic issues. The promotion of Melbourne as a global capital of sport, and the promotion of the UFC as a dynamic new multimedia sporting leisure enterprise. So we talked about those as examples of media storytelling having a real economic and social and cultural impact on place. And then the other idea that we were really introducing you to was the idea that through a method called participation observation, you can go out and see these effects in action. You can go out and observe people as they partake in these sorts of activities and observe how they do it. What are their expectations? How are their expectations managed? What are the rules of engaging with these sorts of experiences? And Melbourne is replete with opportunities to do this. So we've got here, it's currently suspended because of COVID, but you can actually go on a Neighbours official tour. Those of you who have been to LA, you know that there's all kinds of all kinds of tours around the stars houses and all of those sorts of things. There's the Sex and the City tour. In Melbourne, again, there's the Underbelly tour. There are examples of media tourism wherever you would want to go. And you can talk about how media tourism connects media storytelling with local economies simply by showing up to these tours and just describing what's going on around you, and looking at what happens before your eyes. Again, if you want an example of how I did this, it's in my book, Exploring Media Content. But basically what it meant was doing research on not just observing how the event unfolded, but also doing research on the organizations behind the event. So I did research on the construction of Marvel Stadium. I did research on the operation of the UFC. But all of these things serve as a background for trying to explain the significance of the observations that you saw on the day. But again, I encourage you to think about this because participant observation of media places, of observing places where people, I suppose, bring together media storytelling with real places and all of the economic and social organizations that go around them, is a really accessible and it's a really fun way of doing media research. You can do some really interesting research with this. And as I say, this is highly suitable, highly relevant, highly doable within your current location because Melbourne is a major site of media tourism, both in relation to fictional media, both in relation to reality media. You can think about TV shows like The Block and also significantly sport, because quite often sport is the media industry that we forget. And what the other thing I've done is present you with the idea that that sport is another media industry that relies extensively on storytelling. Okay, so those are the ideas that we're going to pick up a little bit more on by digging into some depth into the more advanced theoretical concepts that Huang uses. And I'll see you in class.